Ladies and gentlemen, how is it going? Welcome back to another video. Today, we are revisiting an old beast, the almighty R9290X Lightning. Sorry for the cheap special effect. Let's get started. The R9290X Lightning was launched on 4th of March 2014. It features 1080 MHz core speed and 4GB of GDDR5 memory. Back then, it was one of the most powerful 290X on the market. Compared to $699 USD when it's launched, I picked it up here in China for only 520 RMB, roughly around $73 US, which is quite a good deal. Although on eBay they are still selling for around 150 to 180 USD, and on Newegg it's 330 US. That's crazy. Being the flagship graphics card, it has two 8-pins plus an extra 6-pin power connectors. The reference card has only one 8-pin and one 6-pin. With this much horsepower, it needs a good heatsink to keep it cool. It has a double slot heatsink combined with the half slot fan. This beast requires at least 2.5 slot space to be installed. For some mid-tower ATX case, if you put the card in the last PCIe slot, you may be having trouble installing it. So, what can this beast do in 2019? To find out, I pair the R9290X Lightning with the R5 1600 clocked at 3.7 GHz with 16GB of DDR4 2400 MHz memories at 1080p resolution. First, I tested with my arms. The R9290X can certainly be used as a training tool, but if you drop it, there goes 150 USD. Then 404. This game launched almost 1 year after the 290X Lightning, and is not too demanding to run. It locks the maximum frame rate at 60, otherwise the physics may be broken. During the half-an-hour gameplay, the R9290X managed to keep an average of 58 frames per second at the Ultra setting, but the 1% and 0.1% low figures are not too good, 37 and 9 frames per second respectively, which means there will be some stutters here and there. If you want a solid 60 frames experience, then setting things too high will be better. Far Cry New Dawn has one of the smoother gameplays in today's list. The results in the table are taken from the benchmark at high setting. In the actual gameplay, the results are a little bit worse than that of the benchmark, averaging 66 frames per second, 1% low of 38 and 0.1% load of 18. Dropping things down to normal in the benchmark didn't show much of an improvement. All the figures improved only by a little bit. The 4GB VRAM of 290X is just enough for this title to run at high settings. I'm surprised that PUBG runs quite smoothly on R9290X. You can see that the GPU is at 100% usage most of the time, which means it is still capable of keeping up with this game. The results are taken from the average of 3 matches at Ultra and High settings respectively. In Ultra setting, the game sometimes is unplayable despite of the relatively high average frame rate of 55. There will be stutters and lags throughout the game. Turning things down to high gives a much better result, not to mention a higher average FPS of 69. The 1% low is improved by a lot as well, though the 0.1% low is still quite the same. However, when driving at high speed across the map, the VRAM will often reach its limit of 4GB, which will then result in stutters. Now, the classic GTA 5. I just have to test it. Since by nowadays standard, it is not a very demanding game, I cranked the settings way up to very high to see how the 290X can hold up. And turns out, the 290X can take on this one at ease. Throughout the 45 minutes gameplay, it gives an average of 68 frames per second, with 1% low being 42 frames and 0.1% low of 37. This brings a silky smooth experience on GTA 5. And again, like PUBG, when driving at high speed, there will be some frame drops occasionally. If a solid 60 FPS experience is what you are looking for, then turning down the settings to high will suit your need. Metro Exodus is the latest title in this list, and it is also one of the most demanding games. Setting things to high results in an average of 36 frames per second in the benchmark test, which is barely playable. However, the benchmark set in the most demanding chapter in the game. It may not reflect the actual frame rate in most of the other chapters. Therefore, I also included the results from the opening chapter of the game. In the opening scene, the 290X manages to deliver on average 50 frames per second, with 1% low being 31 and 0.1% low being 14. It is quite playable, but if you want to get rid of the occasional stutter, then normal preset will be your best option. The final game for the test is the infamously unoptimized Assassin's Creed Origins. As you can see in the very high preset benchmark here, the 290X only scored on average 37 frames per second, with some stutters here and there, barely playable. What about the high preset then? Well, under the high preset, the averages go up by 2 to 3 frames in each of the frame count, which is not by a lot. I have also tested the most crowded area in the game, Alessandria, to get a rough idea of the worst case scenario of this card. With the average of 35 frames per second, 1% low being 16 frames, and 14 frames for 0.1% low, I think it is safe to say that 290X will be having a very difficult time on running this game smoothly. But hey, this game is not optimized. To sum up, the R9 290X Lightning, or simply any other 290X, is still quite capable of 1080p gaming in 2019, as long as you are willing to turn things down to high or medium preset. Its 4GB VRAM may be bottlenecking the GPU in some of the modern titles, but tuning down some of these special effects will solve the problem. Another thing to pay attention is that this card can reach up to 71 degrees Celsius in open air. In a case, it will only get worse. The previous owner told me that it reached 85 degrees Celsius when gaming inside a case with the side panel removed. All in all, if you are fine with the high running temperature of this card, then you may consider getting one of these beasts. And that's it for today's video. If you like it, please consider dropping a like, or even better, subscribe to the channel, and hopefully I will see all of you in the next one.